I would talk about this book, but I'm kinda sorta not supposed to talk about it. You see, that's the first rule, is you're not supposed to talk about it. The second rule is, you're not supposed to talk about it. The third rule is, fuck it, I'm already talking about it. I'm doing a book review, and the book I want to review is Fight Club by Chuck Palahniuk. Now, Fight Club was published in 1996. Now, the plot of Fight Club is it follows this unnamed narrator who suffers from really, really bad insomnia, and in the beginning of the story, you see the main character go into all these support groups for, like, people with cancer, or people with testicular cancer, or people who are infected with parasites, and he doesn't actually suffer from any of these diseases, but it kinda makes him feel better to be around people who have it worse than he does. What ends up happening is this woman named Marla starts showing up to all these support groups that he goes to, including testicular cancer, and this really, really pisses him off because he knows Marla is faking it, even though he's just as guilty as she is, and throughout the story, him and Marla develop almost like a love-hate kind of relationship with each other, but eventually you find out that there is a reason why it's a love-hate relationship. And eventually in the story, the main character meets this guy named Tyler Durden, and the two of them develop a very interesting relationship with each other, and eventually he has to start living with this guy because his apartment actually blows up, and you don't know if it was like a gas leak or if somebody actually purposely blew up his apartment, but now he has to live with this guy named Tyler Durden, and eventually the two of them start this underground boxing club called Fight Club. And as the book goes on, Fight Club starts getting more and more members, and eventually it becomes something much different. Eventually Tyler Durden basically turns Fight Club into something that he calls Project Mayhem, which is essentially a terrorist organization, and as the story goes on, the main character starts to realize just how crazy Tyler Durden really is, and eventually he tries to put a stop to Tyler. And that's the basic plot line of Fight Club. Now, Fight Club is a very, very good book, and if you haven't read this, I would definitely recommend it. Now, Fight Club is very much a black comedy, it's very much a satire, and it is actually a really, really funny book. Now, Fight Club is also very much a satire on... It seems to very much be a satire on, like, misogyny and over-masculinity, and it really does seem like Chuck Palahniuk is kind of making fun of, like, overly macho men and, like, misogynists and stuff like that. Palahniuk is also making fun of conformity in this book, and how we in society, we conform to the status quo. And in this book, the people who end up joining Fight Club, which eventually becomes Project Mayhem, they claim that they're fighting society's status quo. Like, they claim that they're, like, fighting against the system, but what they're really doing is they're just trading one system over for the other. Yes, they're fighting against society's status quo, but they're still conforming to Tyler Durden's status quo. So really they're just becoming exactly what they claim to be fighting against. So I feel like one of the main themes of this book is just because you claim you're not a conformist doesn't mean you're not actually a conformist. Now, I will admit there are some things that Tyler Durden says in this book that I actually do kind of agree with, like stuff about the hypocrisy of society and stuff like that, and all of society's bullshit, but you realize that the ways that Tyler Durden goes about out fighting against stuff like this really are very corrupt and really are wrong, and more you start to realize that Tyler Durden really is a psychopath, and all the people who are following him are really just puppets. Now, identity and individuality seems to very much be a theme within this novel as well. Like, you never actually find out what the main character's real name is. All you get are the fake names that he uses in the beginning of the novel when he's going to all those different support groups. Also, the members of Project Mayhem really don't have any individuality. Like, basically when you join Project Mayhem, you just become a space monkey, as Tyler Durden calls it. So, like, when you're in Project Mayhem, you really don't have a name. So I feel like identity and individuality are major themes within this story. Now, I actually do think there are some similarities between this novel and the Bret Easton Ellis novel, American Psycho. Like, both books seem to very much be critiques on male behavior and on misogyny and stuff like that, and I even find Tyler Durden to be a somewhat similar character to Patrick Bateman from American Psycho. Like, I feel like both Tyler Durden and Patrick Bateman are both savage portraits of all the negative aspects of stereotypical male behavior. Of course, there are a lot of differences between the two characters. Like, Tyler Durden very much rejects consumerism and very much rejects the materialist lifestyle, while Patrick Bateman very much embraces that. But other than that, though, I actually do find both characters to be very similar. But yeah, I highly recommend Fight Club by Chuck Palahniuk. It's a really funny black comedy and a really good social satire and a really good thriller as well. And it's also a really thought-provoking commentary on society and conformity and stuff like that. It's a really good book. I would definitely recommend Fight Club if you haven't read it yet. Now, Fight Club was made into a movie in 1999, which starred Edward Norton and Brad Pitt and was directed by David Fincher, and that is a really good movie, and I actually feel like the more times I watch the movie, I actually like it even more each time I see it. But the movie Fight Club is amazing, and if you've seen the movie and you haven't read the book yet, definitely check out the book, but if you haven't seen the movie yet, definitely check out the movie as well. Now, Palahniuk also recently wrote a comic book series called Fight Club 2, which acts as a sequel to the novel, and I believe he's also planning on writing a Fight Club 3 as well. But yeah, that's my review on Fight Club by Chuck Palahniuk, and bye.